Both of these things actually work off of the same selling points. They're both about the slow buildup. In 302, I'll say, it's because of the mystery of,
wait a minute,
who found the ℌʌ𝔫𝔱ằ𝔦 and how is all this stuff happening and all of that stuff. Makes it very tense that way, makes it nice and hot. Solid contender. This is maybe the most competitive match in the very first round. 388 achieves the same consistent tension through different methods, and that's the slow burn. 302 wins on spicy out there premise. 388 wins on execution. Slow burn is a lot harder to do, I would say, than just having a fun mystery. I like my weird premises that you can only get in a one shot. That is true. That is a great point. Things that aren't based on an existing material rather than like the traditional dojins, that is definitely an advantage that they have. The big problem that I have with 302-218 is that once the mystery is actually solved, it lost a lot of its enjoyability for me. There's all the inherent problems of like, if you have someone who's using a ℌʌ𝔫𝔱� that they just
found.
I don't want the people to actually meet. The kind of person that is, obviously like a terrible human being, right? Because taken outside of porn where it's just like, oh, this is hot, fun, you know, that's just awful. And it's not that you couldn't have a person who's a scumbag in a hentai, but the problem is when they actually get brought in, they're so
uninteresting
as far as like the conflict and stuff. Even if you were to go for the angle of like, the original stuff was hot because it got into the whole idea of like,
oh, she's kind of
at the mercy of this person and she doesn't know who they are. She's also like into it. You kind of lose out on that when she's the one who seeks them out. And also, well, the only type of person that they could be after how the piece had been going on up till then. Whereas with 388-445, I do have to finish this one. We'll get into that in a bit.
That's what she said.
With the stuff that they get into with the characters, I believe them a lot more. Aspects of the dialogue that I feel like it would be a disservice to call it hentai dialogue, but having the dialogue and the internal thoughts of the characters go into such detail about explicit physical things that are happening or not happening makes way more sense because it's all about the slow buildup, right? The characters themselves have been itching to go at it with each other and they haven't been able to. So when those little things start to happen, it absolutely makes sense to me that they would hyperfixate on it. 302 was one that I did not expect to like given the premise, but I ended up really enjoying up until it got to the end and you actually meet the person who found the portal device and all that stuff. It's close, but I think 388 has to take the cake for me here, unless it bombs in the last 15 pages. They were both super hot. It's hard to describe because while the two are fundamentally very different as far as the actual things being portrayed in the pieces, I think the strengths of them are very similar. 388. Even here, when the girl's like, oh, these lewd sounds, the lewd is bolded and italicized. Maybe it's just meant to be dirty talk between the two, but I hate when the word lewd is used in hentai. It feels more sarcastic here, which I appreciate. Having exaggerated drawings of the pleasure brought about by the fun that they're having. I believe this because of how they've done the slow burn build up to it. It's a lot of things that I find fun here. And then time for the fingers. Now that I think about it, you don't actually get fingering a lot in hentai. Because like that's another similar thing to like eating the girl out where it doesn't inherently biologically give the guy pleasure. It's oftentimes not done. I really appreciate that little bit of teasing. Like there's a lot of just little things about how these characters are interacting with each other that sells to me that they are in an established relationship. In this piece, you got a blowjob scene. There's plenty of blowjobs in hentai because of, in some ways, how it's not exaggerated. This feels really hot. Do you prefer to get oral or give oral? Or if you want a third option, do you most prefer both at the same time? I really like that they're showcasing them taking breaks. Also, having the characters commenting on how, like, you know, the changes in their partners in the bedroom as a result of the new stuff that they're doing. Ooh, she's ordering him around.
Who's your mommy?
Him saying you're really clamping down on me is so much more believable than,
oh my god, her
such and such pussy is, you know, devouring my cock whole. No one would ever say that. Get that leg lock. Get the clutching of the pillow.
Oh man.
That was a long sesh. 393, the mom essentially steals away the protag from her daughter who cheated on her boyfriend with the protag. It's all kinds of spicy.
Okay.
the protag was like a virgin. I don't need to tell you why it's all sorts of messed up.
It's real fucked up.
In addition to the reasons I've already stated. The piece has beautiful art. The biggest drawback, I would say, is that it has a lot of hentai dialogue.
It's wild.
It's crazy. And this one technically didn't go into NTR then, because for a second at the end, I thought they were going to end it with the daughter then seeing her mom banging the main character, but they didn't actually do that. It is a pretty long piece. It's like 70 or 80 pages, and the sex is kept fresh throughout. The mother isn't believable. The mother does have a progression in that she's an older lady. She's basically been on like a big dry spell. You know, this starts happening, and so then she starts to get more into it as it goes on, even though she is also the experienced one. They actually do go into some of the things of like the details of like if you're new at sex and the things that you don't know to try, the main character getting better, and it actually like being semi-believable, even though they do lean into the magic protag penis. Because the story is about the protag getting better at sex, one, that is a way to balance out the magic dick protag. Because of the way the story progresses, the protag only has sex with his crush at the beginning and at the very end. And in the beginning, the crush is very much the dominant one. At the end, after the protag has been practicing with her mom a ton, the roles are reversed. That is portrayed with the ℌʌ𝔫𝔱ằ faces of the daughter very well. I don't think I've ever had sold to me the idea of why an ℌʌ𝔫𝔸 would be in a story better than in this story, where it's just the sex feels so good you don't even know what's happening. And then he goes back to the mom. He's like,
Yeah, I got shot down.
but whatever, I guess we'll just have to keep practicing. And it is a delightful end to an absolutely batshit insane hentai. But then there's 330-806. This shit got into a highlight, and it almost dominated the whole highlight. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. I had nothing but questions from page 1 to the final page. Most extreme example of hentai dialogue that I have seen in the submissions from this tournament. This thing is like 19 pages, and yet it had like 6 twists along the way. Highly recommend checking it out just for the ride alone. So that is the first set. We call it there for today. Making it to the second round in a tournament this competitive is good.